Hello and welcome to this video, which is a follow-up to a blog post that I posted yesterday, which proved to be very popular, and it's about the best trading day of the month to trade. What I'm going to do in this video is go through all the steps that I went through in the blog post, and then even bonus steps after that. I'm going to go into Excel and analyze the data even further. So let's get started. So I recommend taking a look at that blog post to see what I'm actually doing for more detail. But so quickly I'll go through the steps that I went through in the post and explain them briefly as I go along. The first thing I'm going to do is choose my symbol list here. I've got the CBOE weeklies list, and I'm going to uncheck all of the stocks, and then I'm just going to go down and find the stock that I want to find the best trading day for. And in this case, my example in the blog post was SPY, but of course you can use any individual stock or even any combination of stocks. So I'm just scrolling down through here until I find SPY. Okay, it's right here, so I'm going to place a little check mark by there. An alternative to doing this step is to create a symbol list that only contains SPY, and then of course if you're doing lots of testing on SPY, you don't have to go through this step every time you restart the program. So that would be a quicker tip. Anyway, so I've checked SPY off here, and then in the trade simulation category of templates, so you scroll down through your list of categories, find trade simulation, and then you'll find three templates: the trade simulation batch run, the multi-factor trade analysis, and the Monte Carlo simulation. So the one I'm going to use for the first step is trade simulation batch run, and the default settings are mostly correct for this. The input configuration file is the sim daily returns file, and that is a configuration which runs three separate tests: a daily close to close test, close to open, and open to close, and it will produce three separate trade simulation files on that data. It will output those trade simulation files to the folder selected here, which is reports My Trade Simulation 1. That's the default. If you open up your reports folder, so that will be under Documents, EdgeRater, Reports, you'll find when you run this template, it will create a subfolder called Trade Simulation 1. And then I'm going to override the dates. I'm not going to override the dates, so I'm going to type a 0 here, which would be a no. Do not override dates, which means I'm going to use the entire amount of data that's contained in this symbol list. And to find how much data you have in the symbol list, you click on the edit button over here, and you can go to the data snapshot as one way, and you see the from and the to dates for each symbol, or data update options, and you can see that you've got the most recent 10 years every time you do an update. So I'm going to use the entire amount of data. So that's really all I have to do there, and then I'll just hit the run button here. And while it's doing that, let me just open up the reports folder. You can see that it's generated the My Trade Simulation 1 subfolder, and it's put those three trade simulations in there: the close to open, and open to close. These are Excel files which you can open up in Excel, and let me just quickly do that to show what they look like. I'm just going to open up the close to close file, and what it is a trade list for each day of the history of the symbol list. It's going to do a close to close trade. So the first one is 2/8/2011, sorry, enter on the close, and then exit on 3/1/2011. So entry price and exit price, the number of days. Now in this case, because we're only doing a 1 day close to close, but the entry day and the exit date are two separate days, so it will say number of days is 2. And then it will say the profit and loss percent and various other bits of information. But the important part here is the profit and loss percent. Now it does that for every day in the list, in your symbol list, and so that goes all the way down through to 2/25/2021. And you've got this nice now list of trades and profit and loss percents for each of those. You could open up each of the individual files in Excel, and you can see the difference between close to close, close to open, and open to close. But I won't do that. The other file it produces is the batch run simulation summary report, which is actually what you're seeing in EdgeRater right now. going to close the chart here so you can see this better. So this is the summary report. So this contains a summary of those 3 trade simulations. The number of bars contained, well, essentially the number of trades in the trade list of each of those trade types, and the average percent gain, number of bars, and the percent win rate. And then there is a link to that trade simulation report file, so you could actually open this up in EdgeRater as well. One of the advantages of opening the file up in EdgeRater instead of Excel is that the file is actually hot linked to the chart. So for example, let's open up the close to close here. So I've selected the row and I select open link to document. There's a list of all of the trades with the entry date, the exit date, number of days. There are 2 bars considered when you're trading close to close, the close of one bar and the close of the next bar. So it says 2. Okay, it goes all the way from 2011, which was the start of the data of that symbol list, all the way to the very last bar, which is 2/25/2021. And when I said they're hot linked, this is a trade simulation report which is hot linked to a chart. So if you double click on any of these rows, you'll see a chart. Providing you have this little show annotations turned on here on the chart, you'll see the annotation saying the entry date and the exit date, because they're very close together, obviously one day after the other. These you can see that here too. So that would be an example. And you can also simply sort in EdgeRater 2 by clicking on a header row, so you can find the biggest percentage gain was a 9% gain in one day, which occurred 3/23/20. I think we will remember that day. And so here you entered on the close of the essentially the low bar, and then exited on the close of the following day. 9% gain in one day. So that's just an example of the way these reports are hotly linked to charts, and how it's sometimes better to view a report in EdgeRater, but you can also open up the report in Excel, which I'll be doing later on to show a special technique you can do in Excel. Anyway, back to the trade simulation batch run. So this just shows me that the report has been run for the sim daily returns, and it's generated those 3 trade simulation files. That's all we need to do here. I just know the files are generated, and now the next step is to run the MultiFactor trade analysis template, and I need to select those 3 trade simulation reports. So I'll click on Files here, and I'll find the folder EdgeRater Reports, My Trade Simulation 1, and I don't want to select the summary report, I want to select the 3 trade simulation reports, and if I shift click I can do a multi-select and click on open. So all 3 of those are now listed here. That's what I want. I'll leave the Monte Carlo settings set as the default values, that's fine, and then I'll also leave the tagging set. I could, with multi-factor analysis, you can choose different tag layout files or factors, but the one we actually want for this analysis is the seasonal one, so I can just leave that as is. And then I can just hit run on here, and it will go ahead and process all of those, each of those 3 trade simulation files for each of these factors here, and it will produce a nice report of the final outcome. So I'll just pause the video while it finishes this off. Okay, so it's finished and has produced the summary. I'm going to close the chart down now because we don't need the chart for this step. I'll just hit the close there. And so when you take a look at the summary here, you'll see each of the factors has been run. So the first thing it does is it runs all of the trades in the trade simulation report to get an idea of the average of all of the trades. So you can see that there were 2,516 bars here. This row should very much be identical and correspond to the summary we saw here. So on close to close, the average percent was 0.06% of all those trades, with 55.45% winning trades. Here we can see the average was 0.06% with 55% winning trades, so that should be the same. And then what it's done is it's taken each of the individual factors, for instance Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and just run the Monte Carlo simulation for each of those days or factors essentially. So you can see that there were 467 Mondays in the list with an average return of 0.15%. There were 508 Tuesdays with a 0.05%. There were 507 Wednesdays. And the reason you get slightly different numbers, it just depends on when you're running the simulation, because I've got exactly 10 years of data. So if I ran this midweek, we're going to cut a week off probably at the beginning of the data, and we're not going to have data for the end. And you're also going to have holidays, market holidays, which will affect these numbers too. Okay, and then it goes, it's processed these in the order of the tags that were in the configuration. So it's done day of week first, then it's done week of year, so going from week 10 all the way up to week 53, and then cycles back and goes from 1 through to 9. Then it goes through months, so you can see which months performed better, February, March, April, all the way back down through to January. So it's always starting off at the first trade in the list and working through from there. Then you can see the years down here, 2011 through 2020, which ones were better. And then day of month. So this is the actual day of the month. Then you've got the trading day of the month, which runs from about from 1 to about 23. But when you go to the 23rd trading day of the month, you can see there were only 11 of those in that 10-year period, because you normally don't get 23 trading days in a month. Rare months you do. And then trading days to end of month, which I think is one of the more interesting numbers here. So it's essentially very similar to trading days of day of month, but in reverse. Okay, so if it says 1, you know that it is the last trading day of the month. Okay, and then it cycles back and it repeats all this for the next file. So the first set we looked at was the close to close file. Now we're going through and looking at close to open. So cycle through all of those for close to open, and then it's going through open to close and cycling through all of the factors again for open to close. Finally, it will finish and we see that we've got 500 different Monte Carlo simulations done for those factors. Now this is now a very powerful report that you can sort and filter. So I'm going to show this in EdgeRater first. So if I want to find the best trading day of the month for SPY when I'm looking at the close to close trades, first of all I can just say filter to close. So I've extracted close to close only, and then I can say trading day of month. I only want to select the numbers. I don't want the star or any blanks. Okay, and now I'm going to sort just by single clicking on FE50, which is the final equity. A number higher than 1 here is it's relative equity. So a number higher than 1 means an overall gain, and a number lower than 1 is a loss for that particular trading day of the month. So now by sorting this by FE50, we have a list of the best trading days of the month in order. But FE50 is only one part of the story. There's also the MD50. So MD is your final max drawdown when it's running Monte Carlo simulations. If that number is high, it means it's extremely volatile. So you might have a high FE50 number, but also a high MD50 number, which can be problematic. Be nice to have a high FE50 number and a low MD50 number, because your drawdowns would be less at that point. So by sorting this in that way, you can see that the 11th trading day of the month over that 10-year period is the best, with a 1.14 FE50 final equity, and quite a low max drawdown compared to the other the other trading days of the month. So that's one way to do it. Now, if you wanted to get the same information, but that's trading close to close, what about trading close to open? So what I'll do here is select close to open, and then I will have to go and just sort this again, just to make sure it's in the right order again. And now I've got the trading days of the month that are best based on a close to open trade. In TDOM filter dropdown, if you go in and enable the blanks row, okay, you'll also find the all trades for the all trades report. So that takes all bars into consideration. And so now if I sort by, again, I have to, when I've refiltered the list, I have to resort, because it doesn't do the the sort after you've done a filter automatically. And so now that's quite useful, because I can see that the all trades row down here, this is the average of everything in the file. So essentially anything above this line here is a better than average trading day of the month, and anything below is a worse than average trading day of the month, with the worst being day 8, with a loss actually over that period. So so that's on the close to open case, and then finally you can just do the same for open to close. So close to open obviously is gaps, and then open to close is trading throughout the day, buying at the open, selling at the close of the same day. And then let me sort that, and we can see the all trades here. In this case, there are way more rows below the all trades, and when you go to the rows above, you still find the 11th trading day was better, but not as good a number for FE50. So anyway, that's a good way to sort the results. Now, there's lots of information in this report, as you can see, and by sorting and filtering, you do get to narrow down to the information that you are interested in. But there is another way of analyzing this data using Excel and using pivot tables. So I want to go through that very quickly here. And then if you are familiar with Excel, or if you just want to learn how to use pivot tables, you can do a little bit more research. Well, if you're familiar with Excel, you'll probably know exactly what I'm talking about. If you're not, you can follow along and also research a little bit on pivot tables. So let's go and take a look at that. So after running the report, okay, you'll find in the My Trade Simulation 1, the first thing it's done is that it tagged each of those trade simulation reports and trade lists. So it's just as an example. We don't need to know this, but it will help in your understanding of how the processing works. I'll open up the tagged file. So now we've got the exact same trades listed here, but they are tagged with the tag combinations that I specified. So I can see which days, which weeks, which months each of these trades belong to. And the tags are always based on the entry date, not the exit date. Okay. So the other location for reports is just in the reports folder, and that's where the summary. So if I open this up in Excel, we'll see now this Monte Carlo results summary, and that's what we were looking at in EdgeRater, this exact same file. You'll note that for now this is called the Profit Boost template, because that was the old name of the multi-factor trade analysis. So just bear that in mind. It will change in the future to multi-factor trade analysis, but the file name right now is still Profit Boost. Okay, so when you're in Excel, of course, you still have all the filtering and sorting capabilities that you always had. But one thing that Excel provides that is not provided in EdgeRater is pivot tables. So let's first off, if we open up the templates and system, and let's find the Profit Boost template, because in here there's an example. So I'm opening up Profit Boost template. This is the actual template file that was used to produce this report. In this template, select the pivot table worksheet, because what I'm going to do here is right click on this and say move or copy, and create a copy and copy it to the report. So I do that. Now I can close down the template and just to make things a bit simpler here. So now I've got the exact same worksheet or workbook that I had before, but it's now got this pivot table added in. Now what I'll do is I will select the pivot table, and you'll notice in Excel you have pivot table analyze and pivot table design. So you can say change data source, and if you click on the little up arrow here and then go to the summary and click to select the first, so I'm going to do a shift click so I can select the entire table. So I've selected the upper left of the table, and I'm going to scroll down to the bottom of the table, and I'm going to shift and click on the lower right. So I've selected now the entire table, and I'm going to press enter and click OK. Okay, so now this is a pivot table that is now referencing this summary, the entire summary information. And what I could do now, if I click on this pivot table, I get the pivot table fields popping up over here. So this is where it becomes very powerful. In the fields, I can scroll down until I find the factor that I'm interested in, which is trading day of month, and I can place a check mark by there, or what you can also do is just drag it into this rows box over here. And now it's created in the pivot table, it's updated to show the FE50 and MD50, those two values, for trading day of month. And if you right click in any of the FE50 cells and say sort largest to smallest, you now have a list of the best trading days of the month, or the highest FE50 numbers essentially. And you can see where MD50 fits in there too. Okay, so the first one, 11th trading day of the month, did have a very low MD50 number. This is for the entire list, which includes the open to close, close to close, and close to open. So what you could do is go to File Tag and make that part of your filter. So drop it into the filter box here, and now say I'm just going to select close to close. So now this is the FE50 number, or this is now sorted by close to close, so we can see the best close to close trading days of the month. If I select close to open, we now see the best close to open trading days, and now you can go here and select open to close for the final one. So that's a good way if you want to look at each of those individually. What you could also do is see them all together in this table. So how I would do that is, instead of having this file tag as a filter, I could just drag this over to the values column, and I'll remove FF. We're not using that for now, so I'll just take that out. And now we've got the row labels, but we now have columns for each of the separate factors, each of the separate trade simulations. First set of columns is close to close, then close to open, then open to close. So we see them all in one table, which is quite nice. I'll sort that by largest to smallest. So it's sorted by the close to close, largest to smallest. So now you get a nice visual idea of each of those. So that's very interesting. Well, now you've got even more things you can do in here. What if you wanted to see, instead of trading day of month, what if you wanted to see the best months? Okay, we can replace trading day of month with month. So I'll take out trading day of month, and I'll pop in month into the rows. And I can sort that largest to smallest. So we can see close to close. Over the last 10 years, in the close to close case, November was the best trading day of the month. March has been bad in all of those cases. This is on average, by the way, over that 10-year period, and so on and so forth. So you can see any of the factors individually. And the reason that you can see that is in this list here, we've run those tag combinations for each of those factors. So you then might be interested to find combinations of factors. You can see the combos here are only ever the individual factors, but it's possible to run the multi-factor analysis with combinations of factors. For instance, year in combination with trading day of month, or any of the others in combination with any of the others. And the way that you would do that in EdgeRater is you would go back to the multi-factor analysis. So I'll go back to multi-factor trade analysis. I would select my trade simulation reports, the 3, or you could just select one, it doesn't really matter. Okay, and then we have this tag combination here. I've selected the seasonal file, so it's given me the seasonal factors. But if I wanted to look at year in combination with trading day of month, what I can do is under trading day of month, instead of just analyzing that factor on its own, I could say choose to analyze that in combination with year. So I'll place a 1 in the cell there. So now tag combo 6 is going to be year in combination with trading day of month, and all the others are going to be the same. Okay, so let's go ahead and run that. Okay, so the report has been generated and it looks very similar to the last time, but now remember that tag combo 6 is now a combination of year and trading day of month. So tag combo 6 here is the year and then trading day of month. So it's reporting for that combination, and it does that for all 3 of the input files. Okay, so there's a lot more rows in this report. It goes to 1115, and the other one went to just about 475. So a few more rows. So now we have more data in here, and we can analyze those factors using pivot tables. So let's go to this, open up this new report in Excel. Okay, so I'll open up the Profit Boost template itself, because that's got the pivot table worksheet in there, at least the formatting of it, and I just want to copy that over to this new report. So create a copy, select the report, and now we have that as a copy in here. We need to reset the data source for this pivot table. So I'll say change data source. I'll go into the range and I'll select from top left cell here all the way down to the bottom right hand cell. And so now this pivot table is looking at that data source. So now what we can do is this new analysis idea, which we want to find year in combination with trading day of month. So what I'll do here is I'll select trading day of month, put that into my rows column, and now I'll select year and also put that into my rows column. So now we have year in combination with trading day of month. You could put year in columns. Okay, so now we've got the FE50 numbers and the MD50 numbers in 2 separate columns here, and you've got the years up here, 2011 through to 2020. You could do that, and it's just a matter with pivot tables, it's a matter of the way in which you have organized these 4 configuration boxes down here. Now I'm not going to explain too much about pivot tables. There's quite a lot to pivot tables, but you can find a lot more information on the internet about use of pivot tables. But I find it's just quite a powerful way to analyze this large set of data and get a nice clear summary. So what I could do, for instance, instead of having, I'll remove the FF column like before, tidy things up, and if I want to have year above the values, then I've just moved the year so that it's above the values, and now I've got these years, and you can see that FE50 and MD50 for the same year are now in that group of columns. So I hope that makes sense. But now it's easy to, you can do a sort, for instance, for 2011, and say sort largest to smallest. So you can see that trading day of month 22nd trading day of the month was best for 2011. You can see in 2012 wasn't a good trading day of the month, but you can see all the way along here how that works. So what was the best trading day of the month in the year that's just passed? Let's sort largest to smallest, and there's quite a large 1.47 is actually very large compared to the other numbers in this table. In 2020 we did have, it was a very volatile year, so there were some very large close to close moves in 2020, and the best trading day of the month was 11 in 2020. But this is a really useful way of organizing the data when doing pivot table analysis, because we know that on average for the whole 10 years, because we found that out before, that the 11th trading day of the month was the best. And now we've separated this out into years. We can see that in 2020 the 11th trading day was definitely the best. In 2019 it was okay. In 2018 it was okay. In every year it's been an okay trading day of the month except 2011. Now, we don't actually have a full set of data for 2011 because we've got 10 years of data, and I'm doing this at the end, towards the end of February 2021. So I could go back and select an entire year, make the amount of data I have equal to entire years, and that would get a better idea. And then you could start to do other things like split it by month and year, and get into all kinds of finer details with your analysis. This video is just really intended as a start to getting started with pivot table analysis in Excel on the MultiFactor analysis report from EdgeRater. So as you can see, extremely powerful information at your fingertips. One of the huge advantages of EdgeRater is that all of the reports you produce from templates do end up being Excel files, and so you can use the power of Excel to do further analysis on your data. Even though for most situations you don't need to open up Excel and analyze the data even further, it just gives you that extra power if you need it. Remember, if you're looking at reports in EdgeRater only, then that is quite nice because they're all linked together and they're all linked to charts, and so you get a lot more of an integrated power looking at reports in EdgeRater. But Excel does offer that extra capability too. So in combination, they work very well together. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.